Hello and welcome to All Top 5s. The works of the Walt Disney Company are well known to kids and adults of all ages, but behind the colourful cartoons and the emotionally uplifting animation are a few little known secrets that might tarnish Disney's otherwise enormously successful history. Number 5. Hidden and subliminal messages. This comes as no surprise to many of you, I'm sure. Because most Disney movies are animated, each one may contain hundreds of thousands of frames, individually drawn or digitally painted. Animators have been well known to slip in the odd Easter egg or reference to another film, but some of these have been even more subtle and definitely not suitable for the children watching. For example, in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, a single frame was reported to show the titular Jessica Rabbit flashing her genitals on the rare Laserdisc release only. This was covered up digitally in all future releases, however. Another one is in The Lion King, when Simba collapses on a ridge releasing a cloud of dust. When paused at the right moment, the dust appears to spell S-E-X or sex. Really weird, but this has been denied by Disney as a misreading of SFX, which is an acronym for Special Effects, which the special effects team were alleged to have put in for a bit of fun. But who knows really? I'll do a full video on these hidden messages in Disney films sometime in the future for you, because it's quite a fun topic and there's a lot of them in there. Number 4. Environmental mismanagement. Here's a little known one. On Great Guana Cay, a very small island in the Abaco Islands in the Bahamas, Disney had begun development on a Treasure Island resort. It was going to be a true location destination for cruise ships, presumably featuring lots of pirate attractions, while making the most of the Bahamas' beautiful waters and weather and sandy beaches. However, the Disney Treasure Island resort was apparently abandoned back in the late 1980s, as all work stopped and everything was left as it was in the earlier development stages. In an environmental management report by the University of Miami and the College of the Bahamas, the Disney contractors were accused of serious environmental damage. This includes underground landfill dumps, debris littering the sea and the land, fuel tanks, electrical transformers and other hazardous materials, the introduction of non-native insect and plant species that now threaten the native island life, and abandoned buildings and other structures. Not to mention all of the landscaping removing the natural dunes and vegetation. This is a disappointing display by Disney. If the report is accurate, the lack of care or respect shown for such a beautiful island is a real shame. Although there's an argument against any kind of tourist development whatsoever in wild natural areas like this, it's made worse by the heavy-handed approach taken by Disney to begin renovating the site only to up and abandon it, leaving all the rubbish and contaminants where they lay. I'd imagine that, yet again, the decision was entirely to do with money. Such a shame. Number 3. Hong Kong Disneyland Resort. The Disneyland resorts in Florida and Paris have had some problems, but neither were as catastrophic as the resort in Hong Kong. Opened in late 2005, the park realised that it had grossly overestimated how many guests it could actually accommodate. On the preview day for the resort, 30,000 local visitors turned up, causing wait times for rides exceeding 2 hours and wait times for fast food restaurants over 45 minutes. The managers of the park ended up having to turn away visitors who had pre-purchased tickets, much to their disgust. Capacity limits weren't the only problem, however. Hong Kong Disneyland also required visitors to have their fingerprints scanned upon entry. Now, although this is standard practice at other parks, visitors are unaware of this until they arrive at the Hong Kong resort. The fingerprints taken are allegedly detailed enough to reconstruct a fingerprint image, potentially allowing for ID fraud and data protection violations. Potentially. Finally, Hong Kong Disneyland came under fire on 2 food-related issues. The first was an ambiguous food poisoning incident, with Food and Environmental Hygiene Departmental officers carrying out an investigation into the restaurants on site. Although there were some apparently shocking claims, the government dropped the case on the grounds that there wasn't enough evidence to prosecute. But it makes you wonder what was going on, doesn't it? And finally, on the menu for wedding dinners was the controversial shark fin soup, a Chinese speciality. The shark fins are sourced by fishing up endangered sharks, cutting off their fins and then throwing them back into the water to die. This was protested by animal rights organisations, and Disney didn't seem to want to move on the issue. They took the dish off the menu eventually, but still stated that they would serve it if customers demanded it, instead giving them leaflets on shark conservation to try and change their minds. However, after a lot more protesting by these groups, Disney removed the soup from their menu once and for all, worried clearly about damaging their image in the eyes of the general public. So, a long list of controversies for the badly organised Hong Kong resort, but now we go back to the heart of Disney, its films. Number 2. Racism and stereotyping. Quick disclaimer, I'm not a racist. Any offensive terms that I use in this section are in quotes and used to demonstrate the point I'm making with examples. I refuse to tiptoe around certain words, as that only makes the problem of racism worse. But this isn't the time or the place for that discussion, so please simply skip the next 2 minutes or so if you don't like hearing such words. Job done. Always a controversial topic, Disney has long been criticised for its portrayal of non-white characters. This has been picked up on for years, with many examples. Some characters dress in blackface, a style of makeup used in theatre to stereotypically represent a black person years and years ago, with one famous cartoon short featuring Mickey Mouse doing so, called Mickey's Melodrama. The Siamese cats that feature in both Lady and the Tramp and the Aristocats have their stereotypes hugely exaggerated. One of the most famous examples was the pack of crows in the film Dumbo. Aside from the leader being called, in the script, Jim Crow, sometimes a derogatory term, the characters were seen by many as being offensive stereotypes of African Americans. Walt Disney himself was alleged to have used the phrase nigger pile when describing the 7 dwarves leaping on top of each other in Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. He was also reported to have said pickaninny when he was casting for the hugely controversial film Song of the South. Actually, this 1946 film was particularly notorious, as it is supposedly set in the post-slavery period in Georgia, USA, and, according to many critics and viewers, it depicts black people and their relationship with white people to be offensive and full of stereotyped cliches. For that reason, it's never been released on home video in the USA. It's worth pointing out, though, on the other side of things, that things have changed a lot very quickly over the decades, and public opinion on certain words and perceptions and prejudices are entirely different now compared with 70 years ago. The Walt Disney Company weren't alone in these controversies, as Warner Brothers, MGM Cartoons, etc. also displayed a similar attitude. Again, I'm not justifying anything at all here, I'm merely pointing out the facts. Nevertheless, it's a big issue that comes up again and again when looking at Disney's history. Number 1. Animal welfare and human rights violations. Disney's Animal Kingdom in Florida has come under fire by many animal rights groups, mainly down to the idea that a theme park was created to hold animals in captivity, and for that reason alone. Indeed, weeks before the park opened to the public, some cheetahs were allegedly killed accidentally by chemical poisoning, and a number of cranes also died. Despite this, the United States Department of Agriculture found no animal welfare violations in a case review. Animal rights groups also campaigned against Disney featuring a New Year's Eve firework display near the animals, worrying that the explosions could frighten and potentially harm them, so a compromise was met in that case. Finally, the rights group In Defense of Animals listed Disney World's Animal Kingdom in their top 10 worst zoos for elephants, citing poor conditions, mistreatment and poor management leading to the deaths of 3 elephants in recent history alone. In the early 2000s, activist groups released claims that certain items of Disney merchandise were partly created or assembled in Chinese factories that they termed sweatshops. They stated there were 12 such factories in China, where the workforce consisted of young females who worked 16-hour days every day of the week and earn as little as $90 a month for it. It was reported that these workers complained about cramped living quarters in the factories and of being exposed to chemicals in the workplace. This is, sadly, a practice that goes on in so many parts of the world and is carried out and overlooked by so many corporations that we know and indeed love. So while Disney's definitely not alone in this, it's still really sad to hear these reports, and it certainly makes you think twice about getting your child that Frozen doll for Christmas. And that's it from all top 5s for this week. I should point out for the record that I'm not accusing Disney of anything, and I'm not attempting to besmirch the company or badmouth them. I'm merely showcasing some of the alleged controversial decisions and practices that have been highlighted by others in the last few decades. We've touched on some fairly controversial and delicate topics this week, so please don't use the comments section for a race war debate or anything like that. That's not the place for this. Remember to be considerate to others and respect their opinions and beliefs. Thank you. Finally, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up because it really does help me out on YouTube and other people can see the video that you've enjoyed. You can also subscribe for a new video every Tuesday. So, peace and love to each and every one of you, and I will see you all next time on All Top 5s.